Hello and welcome to the final edition of the deepest dive on the Outer Worlds from Obsidian. I'm Ben Hanson from MinnMax. That over there.
Suriel.
That over there.
Jeffem.
That over there.
Kyle.
We've played through all of the Outer Worlds at this point. If you have not finished Outer Worlds, turn this off, audio or video. Get
Throw it
the
away.
hell out of here because
Run
we're
to
here.
your console
That's
or
right.
PC.
And play it today. I think we would all recommend this game, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Suriel took the longest. We'll dive into this. This is a community game club. We break these big games into discrete chunks. So this was 3 episodes covering the Outer Worlds. So if you're just tuning into this one, you can check out on our YouTube channel or on the Patreon audio archive. We have the first 2 huge discussions. This discussion, we're going to be talking about everything from Byzantium through the myriad of endings that are possible here. If you're watching this, you can get an audio version by supporting MinnMax on Patreon, patreon.com/MinnMax.
2 ends.
No, great.
There we go.
And then in the exclusive audio feed, we'll have the audio there, and then you'll be liberated from YouTube overall. But if you are discovering this, thank you so much. We do these game club discussions. Hopefully we'll do, what are they, like 5 a year, something like that. I'd like to do more in the future. So we'll announce the next one soon, but let's get into the deepest dive on the Outer Worlds right here. Ready to go? All right, we got one piece of feedback here.
Only one?
Yeah, we only one comment.
Oh, boy.
Okay, this
Tim
is gonna be a short
Holt
podcast.
wrote in saying, for Ben, I also spoke with Catherine, and she called them brass knockers even though I was playing a man.
There you go.
Oh,
All right, thanks for watching our discussion.
Thanks
of
for writing in, everybody. Really appreciate it. No, a special thanks to everybody that submitted a comment on the Patreon post. Even though it's part 3 of this game, we had like over 50 people leave a comment. The amount of people that played along with us, and people played along and didn't leave a comment. So like, thank you for sticking with us. We know it's a tall order to be like, play the game in these sections and then leave a very specific
By
piece of
this
feedback.
time period,
Yeah, but
yeah.
so many people did it. And so thanks to everybody who wrote in. We really appreciate it. The ending of the Outer Worlds. Cyril, if you had to guess the tone of the overall sentiment in emails, what would you guess?
Overall positive, but kind of not over the moon about
What
it.
a very bold prediction.
A Halo 2 approach to the ending.
Honestly, it was amazing. The first wave of feedback we got for the game club was overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
People like, holy mother of God, I want Parvati to be the mother of my God.
Strong start.
Mother of my God.
Then part 2, it was like, oh, I think some cracks are showing here, but we're still digging it. The overall sentiment, if I had to sum it up for all the feedback based on part 3, was like, okay, yeah, it kind of fell apart at the end. But I still think it's pretty good.
Fall Apart seems strong to me,
Right.
but it wasn't this like exciting ending. You know what I mean? It just sort of like puttered out at the end. I was
That's
like, all right,
what-
well, I'm
that's-
excited to see what's next. You know?
That's it. But I think overall, the sentiment was a lot of people were like, yeah, it kind of went out with a whimper, but at the same
Yeah.
time, like, I think the characters and specific moments were so strong that it all pays off.
Interesting world.
There are some
Yeah.
good things along the way to that ending that I think are worth talking about.
Yeah.
And we will. Jeff, what do you think about the ending?
I actually like how they wrapped everything up at the ending,
Yeah.
but I understand because the Byzantium for me was also kind of a disappointment, and that's where the flaws leading into it kind of kept on growing. But Byzantium as a whole, when I got there, because it's kind of like, okay, this is the planet that's one giant city because where all the rich people live, and when you
Well, not the full planet, but I know what you mean.
yeah, but when you walk into it, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I guess, there's not that many buildings. It doesn't like it. It stuck out to me as opposed to when you first get to Groundbreaker.
100%.
Because I went in there, I didn't have many expectations, and it opens up and it's like, oh wow, this feels like an interesting place. It feels lived in. I want to explore this place. And Byzantium, and a lot of video games do that where it's like, now you're in this big city, but you've got like one block that you can walk around. There's like
Yep.
3 places that you can go to and a couple people on the street,
For sure, yeah. I mean, you want it to be the Midgar of the Outer Worlds, and it is not. Like, even would wander around for a while, like, I'm going to look for side quests. I'm going to talk to people. It's like, well, there's the one lady who hates immigrants All right, like what else do we got? And you're really just like wandering these empty streets. But Anthony Caruso writes in and agrees with you, Jeffem. Says, I love you, Jeffem. Everything you say is right. I like your gray sweater and your Calvin and Hobbes t-shirt. Now he
Look
says,
behind you.
he says, I still love the game overall, but it definitely started to drag for me at the end. Byzantium specifically felt oddly lifeless for what is supposed to be the luxurious pinnacle of the corporate world. The side quests felt their most checkboxy here. The game just sort of slowly petered out for me. I still love the total experience, but it's odd to look at all the options and excitement from the early parts of the game compared to the end, and it feels muted and basic. Super Mario says, for me, the game never really quite reached the heights of exploring Groundbreaker after I left it for Monarch. Byzantium was interesting, but the load times to enter almost every single building were really brutal and slowed down the experience. By the end, I had murdered everyone in Byzantium for the hell of it, and I still got the quote-unquote good ending.
I feel like for me, Byzantium made a pretty strong first impression where you get off that ship and there's like, here are these towering buildings everywhere.
Yeah.
So it does give off that like, okay, this is very different from other places I've been. You know, it's not like a barren like Monarch where it's kind of a lot of flat areas with little houses springing up. It feels like you are surrounded by buildings, and it gets across the feeling of, okay, this is the heart of the corporatism of this game. And you know, just as I was wandering around, I had like, here are two people talking about having met a celebrity or whatever, and like that dialogue had no purpose, and like I didn't have a major goal in mind, so I just kind of wandered around. It did feel like getting lost in a big city, but that lasted like maybe 5 minutes, and then I was approached by someone. I don't know if you guys did this side quest where I was approached by someone said like, hey, you look really nice, like you want to do a commercial,
Right. Or be in a film.
and so and it's just randomly off the street, and this felt like, okay, is this going to be like a prelude to like, is this city like as big as I think it is? And you know, it turns out it's not, but like that first moment, like the first few moments of taking that city in, I think are really strong. But then it very quickly kind of, you realize like, okay, it's a weird contrast because this is supposed to be the big city, but it's the smallest environment in the game.
In some ways, compared to just the wilds of Monarch even. Sean Mills writes in about that, says, I really enjoyed the ending of the game and how weird the side quests in Byzantium got. My two favorite were one where you meet a scientist who lost his pet sprats and asks you to find them in the underground area. If you question him, he admits that he's given them names and detailed backstories. I ran into him again in the Ministry of Accuracy and Moral, where he gave me a key card for the hibernation lab. The other side quest, where you get hired as an actor for a TV show, I gave all the dumb responses during my audition and kept getting more and more praise from the director, and the other actors were getting mad I was upstaging them. I would get comments from NPCs I talked to later praising me for my great acting ability. That's an amazing joke. I didn't know that. Like, I did that too, and I thought that was a really funny mission, but I guess I was expecting a little bit more because I would just, you know, have some different responses, and by the end they're like, you know, we'll call you, don't call us type of thing. But I love the idea if you just have the dumb options and everyone's like, brilliant, brilliant actor.
They're saying actors are dumb. Is that what they're trying to say?
Yeah. No subtlety gets by this guy.
Subtlety.
I questioned part of the like, well, I don't know that that's how this would, because I had like a science check. I was like, I don't know that that's how it's like, look, just read the lines.
Right.
Yeah,
and then I'd also got like, oh yeah, don't call us. Definitely don't call us. We'll call you.
I was also the annoying person pointing out all the plot holes, and finally the actors were like, we can't do this, like we're taking a break, get out of here.
Right,
you know?
right.
And the other example that he gave about collecting the sprats was one that I had in my notes, because I was not expecting, like I was sneaking around in that last facility, and so when I randomly ran into him and it was like, he looks familiar, I couldn't remember, and then it was like, oh yeah, that's the sprat guy, and it was super cool that he gave me that ID card to get through like the next section. So,
Segabon says, I love this game. So many funny moments. When you get to Byzantium and meet your contact, she talks about stuff being broken and not getting fixed, like the paper shredder and the complaint box. I also enjoyed the mission where you can get a guard drunk and steal his keys. He's celebrating getting a promotion and mentions that he is only 2 promotions away from bathroom breaks at work. I look forward to playing this game again and making different choices. Overall, he said it was a great first deepest dive. I would have missed this one if not for MinnMax. That's great to hear.
That woman that he's talking about, the woman who talked about the paper shredder, she looked so much like Alia Shawkat, maybe from Arrested Development.
Oh yeah,
like, I couldn't shake it to the point where, and she even kind of sounded like her, and I went like looked her up. It's not her, but like I was like, oh my god, maybe's in this game.
Yeah,
and the guard that you convinced to get drunk, that sequence is, we kind of talked about this a little last week, but it was sort of that like the crack showing moment where he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so drunk, I'm gonna lay down for a second, and he just like walked over to this bench, and then just sort of physics took over, and he just like collapsed.
He basically dies.
Yeah, it's just the death animation of him on the bench. I was like, all right, well, give me your stuff.
I also like that you can go down. I had Parvati with me, obviously, and like talking to her.
Hang on, did everybody have Parvati with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I grabbed Sam. I did that was one mission I went back and did and got Sam. So I put him in my party a little bit at the end just because I wanted to see what he was about.
Yeah, but like you can have a conversation with her about who has what code name.
Oh, that's right.
Because they're all bird themed.
Yara writes in saying, I really like meeting Phineas's contact Carmen in Imagawa whenever you reach Byzantium. I'm sorry, that's right. She comes up with code names all based off birds because the board has eyes over the entire planet. You can push the conversation and find out hers is Golden Eagle and yours is Cuckoo, which you can demand she switch. Your companions then interject too with names that they want. Parvati wants to be Chicken because they adopt and critters babies. Carmen gives Ellie the codename Rufus Hummingbird, which she hates. Carmen gives Max the codename Rockhopper Penguin.
I'm so glad you guys brought this up because I wrote down, I like all the bird chat, but I couldn't remember what exactly.
You wrote down bird internet?
Bird internet, that's right.
Yeah, and I had Nyoka. I actually can't remember what hers was, but she just had a funny moment of being like, well, like, this is stupid, but if everyone's getting one, I want one.
Yeah. It's basically just a Reservoir Dogs.
Yes.
So like, why am I Mr. Pink conversation? Yeah. Neil Smith says NPCs in Byzantium have substantially more money to pickpocket. It's a small thing, but often in games, NPCs all pull from some random loot table, 5 through 25 money for everyone that's not a special NPC. In Byzantium, that's really noticeable how much more is in these particular pockets. That's a really interesting,
That's cool.
smart
That's a nice
detail.
touch. I didn't steal from anybody, so
I don't know what you're doing, man. Brandon Anderson, it's funny, like the lowered expectations that the devs successfully communicated about this game, and
good
like
marketing.
I guess, but it kind of comes back because a lot of people use this. Where Brandon Anderson says, "I feel like the phrase quote time and resources reiterated by Kane and Boyarsky often." Became more evident as the game drew to a conclusion on Byzantium. After exploring the other planets, especially the vastness of Monarch for hours and getting into mini-combat scenarios, the quests on Byzantium seemed to be more dialogue-centric instead. The few quests that did involve combat had the player going back to Terra 2 and Monarch to retrieve the outfits to model for the fashion designer.
Yeah, they were very fetch. That was the only time where I really felt like, okay, they're sending me on fetch quests.
Right.
And there were a couple of them on Byzantium like that, where it's like, one was you go into like a tourism agent?
bureau basically, and then I think it's called the Bureau of Exploration, where they hey, go on a guided tour, and you're like, okay, well, this is going to involve you going through every planet, and you're supposed to get these beacons that'll tell you where to go next. But the joke is that they're all super dangerous. So like one of them will be in the middle of like a bunch of like insects, I think, on Monarch, and there's one that goes into the Scylla space station, but it's outside of like the breathable air, so you have to run outside and grab the thing before you die, basically.
That's cool.
And so when you go back in, when you do all that, when you go to every planet, he's like, oh, you weren't supposed to come back. It's like those were intentionally set up so no one would make that trip because like we just spent like it was way too much money to have people go to every planet.
Right.
So those world people were supposed to die so we could just collect our money.
Yeah.
So like it's a good joke, and I like that it doesn't overstay its welcome. But I think that if you had done a lot more of the side stuff, it would probably be, well, I don't want to go back in and do all that stuff again.
Yeah. That was the only mission that I didn't do out of like all the ones that I found.
Oh, wow.
When I finally got to that point, I was like crossing everything off that I could, and then was like, I'm not going to every planet again.
Yeah. I feel
just
like
for this joke.
I was on
it does sound like a good joke.
It's like a lot of like that, and the acting quests I think are good bits more than quests. But I like that they're not super involved. I like that you just do the acting quest and that's it. There's no like, well, now you have to go do, like, they don't feel pressured to say this has to be a whole thing because we put time into it. But I had a weird situation where, did you guys end up uncovering that, like talking to Lilio about her like conspiracy?
No.
So if you talk to her and you do that one quest, she tells you that she believes that Dr. Chartrand, I think her name is in cahoots with aliens. And so she sends you on a mission to kill her because like, oh, she's working with the aliens to kill us all, basically. And so I went into her lab and kind of did that entire quest, and then you find out like, no, I've been trying to figure out how to like either get more food or adapt people to eat less food so that they can survive more, and which ends up being the crux of the whole game later on.
Yeah.
But because she is guarded by guards from Byzantium, I ended up killing them, and that put me over the line of now the board was hostile towards me. So when I left for Byzantium, the guards were it was on sight, like they were just immediately attack me, and so all the citizens were also like running away from me. So I couldn't get as many all that many quests done in Byzantium. So I spent the entire quest just like, all right, like I'm trying to get to this like I'm trying to get out of the city for the exploration board quest, but I have to kill like 4 people just to get there.
Oh, wow.
And so I would come back and there would just be all these dead bodies and no one would want to talk to me.
That's amazing. Is your name Peter Fontana?
Yes, actually, I meant to mention that earlier.
Peter Fontana wrote in with the exact version of what you just said, saying like, when went back to Byzantium, I was kill on sight after doing that quest. Again, this basically removed the possibility of me completing pretty much any side quest from Byzantium, so from there it became a straight shot to the end. I basically tied up some loose ends on companion quests and then barreled through the final missions of the game.
Yeah, and the only other quest that I was able to do there was Ellie's companion quest.
Yep.
Which I think is a pretty good one, actually, in that it's more dialogue-based than anything else. But, like, you go in and Ellie tells you, like, well, my parents are here, so I want to go visit them. And you go visit her parents, and they're like, oh, we didn't know you were going to show up. It's like, well, of course, we're estranged because we never talk. But they're like, well, we kind of took out a life insurance policy and have started cashing that in for you. So, and that's why we're rich now.
And I love that they're like Maryland. It's referred to as Maryland. It's like that subtle little detail. I love that.
Yeah, and so like they basically want her to go away so they can keep collecting payments for the life insurance. But then you can work with Ellie to like open up another bank account, and like because she's the beneficiary, like she's like the person responsible, you end up having all the life insurance payments diverted to her instead, which basically means that she's well off now at the end of the game.
Which is funny because you again kind of that fetch quest or like travel planet hopping again. You have to go to Monarch where the insurance company is.
Yeah.
And then on there you're like, why is this on Monarch of all the planets? Like the planet abandoned, and they're like, legally and for tax purposes, it is not on Monarch.
Yeah, because part of the quest involves going to a mailbox.
Right.
That is like, this is the address that we technically operate under, but all of it gets diverted to this place in Monarch. So it's like a whole tax loophole thing where it's like, well, technically we're here, but
it's basically that Nathan For You episode with the rebate on top of it. Mexi Flores says, my favorite mission has to be Ellie's side quest meeting her parents, finding out they lied about her death to cash in on her life insurance policy. As a licensed insurance agent myself, I was cracking up thinking how many clients would do the same thing if the opportunity presented itself. The big kicker was when you went to Monarch to change the beneficiary, I used intimidation to have the lady change the name of the policy, and finding that the only reason why she did was her current insurance policy only covered paper cuts. P.S. The way Ellie's parents just tried to play it cool and have her leave without making a scene, I was not expecting that response at all.
Yeah, and that one was also interesting because Ellie goes into it basically wanting to like screw with them and and make them very angry. So she's really talking up like, yeah, I'm a pirate and I'm so rude and this is my friend and he or she is a real jerk too. Yeah. And then like you can choose to either be that jerk or to like be really polite and be like, Ellie, you're being rude about this. But then, it does take that twist where it's like, oh no, like her parents didn't even care that she's gone. They're not like feeding into this drama that she's trying to create. They just kind of want her to go away, and it kind of ends up being sad,
Yeah. Christian King says, I felt disappointed with Ellie's quest line. The other companions had these well-written and in-depth quests for their storyline. For Ellie, you talk to her parents who are scumbags, and then another lady at the insurance office, and that's it. Felt like they ran out of budget by the time they got to doing Ellie's quest. Another thing I thought was interesting is if you murder her parents, after talking with them, she gets pissed and leaves your crew. That's something I haven't seen done in a long time.
Seems understandable, but I think that quest is emblematic of like kind of where this game is at, where I think the writing picks up a lot of the slack for other parts of the game, where like the writing to me is like the best part, the characters and things like that, where and so this is like a good sort of bit where the writing saves that quest from being a lot worse than it could have been, because like he said, it's an extended fetch quest where you don't really do much and there's not a whole lot to it. But what could they have done? Like if you had battled enemies on the way to Monarch, I don't think that would have markedly improved the quest. So I think it is a case of like, if you don't like the writing or you don't like a particular storyline, that's going to maybe sink the whole thing, because there's not a lot to do outside. Like the writing is the centerpiece here. So if that doesn't work, then nothing does.
It's interesting that she gets pissed about the parents being killed and stuff, because I remember last week I was talking about Graham and Zora and how I didn't really like meet a satisfactory conclusion. At a certain point, I just like, before I finished the game, I went back there and I just talked to Graham to try to figure out, it's like, is there a conversation I can go down to like kick you out and put Zora in charge? And there weren't any options. He was just telling me about his history. So I just shot him. Like I just killed him. And then
Which by the way is really tricky because then everybody turns on you, right?
Yeah. So I managed to like, stay alive and kill everyone and hit a point where they, I guess, forgave me. I don't know.
Yep,
and I went and talked to Zora, and she like didn't have any reaction at all for me of any kind of like, oh, what happened to Graham, or like I'm gonna take over now. She was just like, did you get an update on that thing? And I was like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. That like I thought if I just went and killed this NPC, it would make something happen, but it was more just
because
like
the entire town of Iconoclast like try to kill you, including Zora. Then you leave and
Zora
come
didn't,
back.
which was
oh,
weird.
really?
Like I think I just managed to stay in that room. So the people that came in there, like I killed like 4 or 5 people, and then when I walked out, like no one was the wiser. It was weird.
Oh, weird. Yeah, I had to like sprint my way out of there, and it was surprisingly tricky to like jump down that stairwell after killing Graham and all that stuff. But then I went back later, and Zora's like, "Well, I guess I'm in charge now." And it's like,
See, I didn't even get that.
what? Okay.
I should go check on her again and give her some time to figure out what happened.
Christian King continues his thoughts, saying, "I forgot about the main storyline for most of the game. Then on the last mission, I was reminded what it even was we were doing." Which, after thinking about it, seems like a stupid plan. Even if Phineas had the resources to wake everyone up in cryosleep, there's nowhere to suddenly put thousands of people or feed them. His main goal just seems stupid, and his solution is they're smart and can think of something. They can't magically make homes and food when most people are already struggling to survive.
Yeah, I mean, I think the
Trying to save people's lives, man.
It's weird because like I also had that same thought of like, well, what are you going to do with all these people? So, you get to the quest where you have to get the sulfoxide, and they said, well, if you take all of it, the people here on this planet are going to die because they don't have a way to get revived from cryosleep. So I only took...
Yeah, it's the scientists in that room.
So I only took like, 27% or something of the sulfoxide. And he said, like, this is the bare minimum that they would need for everyone to get revived. So I took that, and he was like, well, we're not going to be able to revive everyone. And he seemed pretty upset about that.
Right.
But, I wasn't able to tell him, well, it's because we need fewer people who are most effective, so choose your best people. But I do think that the through line that was supposed to be guiding you throughout the entire game ends up coming to bear at the end, where they're like, you're reading all the logs about like, we're on the ship, we don't have any food. I'm like, there is the sort of subplot of the guy who wasn't eating his rations because he wanted them to last longer for them to go to other people. But he was kind of like, I think he wasn't the captain, but he was kind of like below the captain. So the captain was like, you need to eat because I need you.
Yeah.
And so like seeing a lot of those text logs were like, okay, this is maybe the hardest the main storyline has hit so far, but I'm enjoying what I'm reading.
Suriel, did you not pick up the other half of that story though?
No,
Because he wasn't eating because he was a cannibal.
You freak, Suriel.
Wait, a cannibal in an RPG?
He was unfreezing like people from the group, from like the hundreds of thousands of people or whatever that they had, and he was eating them, and like he got like half of the crew on his side to like start eating them, and then there was a mutiny between the two sides.
Interesting. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
I only caught smatterings of that. Like there were all those logs that were creepy, where they were like, I touched the guy's arm and it like collapsed into water.
Oh yeah,
I was
I
like,
didn't
oh my
get
god,
that.
that is horrifying.
Yeah, and so that comes to bear in a way that I think is really cool. And it was, I mentioned earlier on an earlier episode how like I was hoping the facade of like the corporatism and everything is fine, like the Fallout kind of veneer of it would crack, and I think this was that, right? Of
when serious stuff was happening,
everyone being like, okay, we're super desperate and we need to figure out how we're going to feed everybody. And there was like the guy who brought on seeds as part of his rations or something, and then he was using it to plant stuff so that people would be able to eat. And so like seeing that, I think was like the flip that I needed for people just acknowledging that things do actually suck here.
Mm-hmm. What did you end up thinking about the board and the mission for the board overall?
I thought it was okay. Like the other quest giver, which apparently like you can have, like if you turn in Phineas early, you basically end up working for her most of the game instead, which I didn't do. But I think she contacts you when you're about to go into the end game, and she's like, give me his signal, and I'll go kill him. And you can give her a corrupted signal, and then that kind of puts her.
Is that what you guys did?
Yeah.
Okay, so then where does she go?
Yeah, I think you eventually go back to talk to her.
Yeah.
Because she's like, oh, well, he's kind of evading capture, but thanks for giving us a signal.
Yeah, she doesn't catch on at that point, but then she gives you another mission, which is to go to Edgewater and basically kill everyone there.
And you all had that mission option?
I didn't do that one.
She told me about it.
I think I was just a jerk to her the moment I met her.
Oh, is that right?
She didn't really.
Okay,
yeah. And so like her logic is, well, and it was also because I shut down the power in Edgewater. And so she's like, so now there are all these people, they're using our resources. Like, we have to send them these resources that we don't really have.
Yeah.
So we need to murder them all. And her plan is that she has already sent like a bunch of the automechanical machines, and they're going to kill everyone. But then you have to go in and you have to kill all of the machines afterwards. And then they can say that, it was another short circuit, like in the in the Borst factory or one of the places where they killed everyone. And so she was giving me that mission, and I accepted it.
Oh, wow.
And like Parvati was in my group, and she was like, "You can't do this. Like, I'm not going to go through with this. Like, don't make me choose between you and the town."
And it's heartbreaking. Her spiel there is like some of the best acting from Parvati in the game. Yeah.
And I told her to just trust me on it. And then I cashed in the last mission that I was on, because you have to like follow through and talk to her secretary. And then I went back and I killed her, which was kind of like the
Killed
tipping
the Sophia
point.
lady?
The commander who's giving
Sophia,
you the and then that was kind of the tipping point for me, and that was the interesting part where I was kind of min-maxing my way through like every conversation that I had at that point, and like trying to play it neutral and like have everyone on my side. And that was the point where I was like, no, like this person's crazy, like I'm going to take that step over, like to the point of no return, basically, because at that point the entire board's mad at you.
Yeah.
And like they chased me out, and I was having to shoot everyone on the way out. And then when I got to the ship, Ada was like, "Man, like you killed that lady. You really went for it, and like it's
fun.
over now." And so, but at that point, I only had like one mission left. But I appreciated that I finally got to that point where it was like, no, okay, I'm taking a stand. Like I'm really defining what my character is at this point.
Right.
Oh, I wish I could have seen that speech from Parvati, because I just said no, kill her. Like that was me. I'm not gonna go and kill everyone in Edgewater. So I wonder if those robots still end up going and killing everyone.
No, they don't.
They well, for me, they super did.
but I wonder if it's like I didn't even humor her.
If you did the mission?
Yeah, so I fully sided with the board. I haven't explained this, but I went back to the save from the last Deepest Dive where I just went right to Byzantium, immediately started working for Sophia. And the interesting thing is, because if you choose that route and turn in Phineas, you skip all of Monarch, all of those quests and everything there. And so if you go right to Sophia, then she's like, well, I'm interested in what you know about Phineas, but you have to prove your worth first. So go to Monarch and do these quests, and they make you kind of go back and do all the quests just in a slightly different way. Like in this way, Hiram, instead of like, being like, ooh, I know the secrets and trying to wage war between the two broadcasters and all that stuff, he's just like immediately kissing the board's ass, which is really fun. It's like, hey, you just got to stop these broadcasts and stop this propaganda. So then you can go, and I just killed our dear friend Sanjar. What's his name?
You killed him?
Yeah, I killed everybody. And then went in and like, they try and say like, well, you still have to go to the top of the mountain in Monarch, so you still need Nyoka. So went there and talked to her, and then I was like, I don't want to do that quest where I have to get her caffeine pills. So look, I apologize for being a monster, so I just like just unloaded in Nyoka, and then the entire town like erupted on me. And it's just every time I went to Monarch, it was just an S show because everybody wanted to kill me because I was just slaughtering absolutely everybody. But going back to that Edgewater thing, yeah. So you activate the robots annihilate the entire town. But Jonah Abraham has a similar thing here. He says, I really enjoyed the ending of the game. One moment in particular had a lot of narrative dissonance for me. I took the board supporting route, and as part of that, Akande, who's Sophia, asked me to activate a bunch of killer robots that would wipe out dissidents on Edgewater. Parvati was in my party at the time, and she pleaded with me not to go through with it, begging me not to force her to choose between her captain and her home. Nevertheless, I decided to go wipe out Edgewater. By the way, for me, her explanation was because Adelaide was in charge. She's like, I can't have these rebels, these dissidents running Edgewater. Like, it's a bad look, so they need to go. Anyways, but Jonas says that Parvati never reacted to it. I even kept her in my party as we walked through the blood-soaked remains of Edgewater, mopping up the last remnants of the robots.
Look at this.
She didn't
See
say
what we've done.
She didn't say anything negative then, nor for the rest of the game. I found this disappointing, as I thought it was out of character for her not to speak up. That was probably the biggest shock, is that they didn't account for that. Outside of like that one line, which was really heartfelt and great, then I kept her in my party and literally was mopping up the robots in like the slaughtered town of Edgewater. And then I talked to her and she goes, that June Lei seems swell, huh? Like, she's only focused on that.
Yeah.
And it was like, stand up for yourself. Like, leave the game.
Yeah.
Like, leave the party. I think that'd be cool. And like, the only person that really objected to me siding with the board in a big way was Felix. And he's like, he had a really good line where he's like, look, that was really messed up what you did in Edgewater. He's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to side with the board. No one on the ship wants to side with the board. The way you're talking to me right now makes it seem like you don't want to side with the board. So why are you siding with the board? It's like, hey, man, just doing what I got to do, right? And there's actually a really great response where you can explain things, and it's like, look, Phineas is crazy. He's clearly using us. No one else knows what the hell they're doing, so what am I supposed to do, right? And like Ellie in particular really stepped up and got my back for siding with the board overall. She's like, look, just make sure you get paid. Like, make sure you're not being swindled here. But like, they're in power. You got to do what you got to do. Like, I'm with you, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so everybody got my back, and it was to the point that Felix, where he's like, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. But he was still on the ship, and I'm like, leave you, card. I didn't tell him that directly. I wanted him to
Start
take
your
action.
own ship with two ends.
But he never left. Like, he just stayed the entire time, which I thought was kind of a bummer. I was trying to break Felix, and it just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it would be interesting if they had more kind of end states for those characters where they like finally
like a suicide run kind of
do something.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
I also wonder if that specific piece of dialogue was like, nobody wants to be on the board. You don't want to be on the board. It's like, I wish there was the response of like, look, I already did the other ending. Okay, I'm just back on my second run. I just want to see what would happen. You know,
it seems reasonable the game would include that for sure.
Was Phineas not kidnapped for you guys? Did you like send out?
No, he was kidnapped at the end because I sided with him basically.
The way you guys were talking out, because like I had to like break into the prison and stuff, and I was like, it sounds like you guys didn't do that.
Yeah,
but
they still show up right after that point.
Yeah, so that stuff all still happens. So, but it's funny because when I went to talk to Sophia, that was the one place in Byzantium where I wasn't getting shot at. So I guess either she's like, no, this guy's cool. Don't shoot him on
So
sight.
you saw her in person on Byzantium? Because I never, maybe it's because I was just a total jerk to her all the time. I never got face to face with her until the very end of the game. And it was a very like unceremonious, like, door opens, she shot me, I shot her in the head, and she collapsed. And it was like, well, that,
and then Phineas was in the cage?
Yeah, and then I had the long conversation with Phineas, which I'm assuming you guys all had, right?
Did you guys?
I did not. I mean, for me, it was obviously the opposite.
Oh,
where
sure.
Sophia was locked up, and Phineas was losing his mind, and it was like, you defeat that final boss, go in the door, and Phineas is like,
was it a giant robot
I'll kill
for
you? Yeah.
Okay.
And Phineas is like, I'll kill you, and then it was, one whack of a hammer, and then he was down. It's like, okay, there's Phineas, everybody.
And that, like, it's such a tough. I assume, did people write about that boss, that final boss?
Yeah, let's get to it. Yeah.
Like fighting Sophia or Phineas in your case was so unsatisfying, but it's also unsatisfying to fight that boss. Like, I don't know, I just didn't really. It struck me as odd when they're like, all right, you got to get through this boss to see the end of this game, and I was like, really? In Outer Worlds, I have to fight a boss?
You don't. Christopher Powell writes in. Doomia writes in. He says, did anyone else run the whole game one way with dialogue and persuasion, but before you went into the next security prison, you changed your stats for sneak, hack, and lockpick all to 100, and that was the easiest thing you could do? Like the robot boss, you can pick and hack, throw doors to get a computer that turns all the robots' agents in him as well, and just shut them off. That's kind of scary. But you get the idea.
That's more interesting than what I did, which was just hide around corners and shoot him a bunch and then hide around a corner.
I got to that point and I had actually saved like 10 skill points because I didn't want anything else at that point.
Right.
I was sitting on those and I had like a bunch of different armor selections, and so I put them all into that one stat that I needed to hack that computer, and I was 1 point short.
Oh my
God! Like, what can I do? But at that point, like, there was no armor or anything that could boost me up that one extra point.
Oh, that's such a bummer. That boss was funny. I like the idea of them all being like ice themed, to go back to like, freezing, the fact that you were unfrozen and stuff like that. That was clever. But then the boss itself, like, I was just laughing at, because those little drones were annoying and I had kind of a tough time taking them out. But then it was just like literally using the vortex mace. No, I had a flame sword. And I would just run in circles and slice at that boss, and it just looked like the jankiest, dumbest way to have this grand finale.
I think the melee combat in general, I don't think is very good, because that's what you did the entire game, is you run circles around people and you slash at them. And I think if I were doing it now, I would have had Sam with me, because he has acid, which I think does extra damage to robots. But right now I had a bunch of plasma, which I don't think is as strong. So I was playing on hard, and it was like definitely a slog of like, okay, this is the third time he's going to send in the drones. I have to hide behind the corner. Both of my crewmates are dead, because of course they are. Yeah. And then so I just had to basically wear down this boss for a while. And at the end I was like, okay, well, I'm glad that you can circumvent him completely, because that would have been one of my complaints, is like, I wish you could. But real quick, did you guys end up doing any of the finishing off that Parvati quest with Junlei?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know.
No, I got like the perfume or whatever for
Yeah.
her, or like bathing stuff, and then I stopped there.
So I got you need a perfume, you need a casserole, and you need a dress.
Yeah.
Which is funny getting the dress because everyone was trying to murder me in Byzantium, and that's where the dress is. So I walked
fun.
in, and the shopkeeper's trying to kill me, so I kill them, and then it's like, oh, the dress is in this drawer. All right, here's a new dress. Go talk to your new
Don't
girlfriend.
mind the blood.
Speaking of clothes, real quick, I just through circumstance and stat boosting, like it turned out I gave Parvati like better armor, and then I didn't have any other armor, and Vicar was with me, and Parvati's old armor was like the best stats for him.
Oh, okay.
So like there was a point in the game where Vicar was running around with Parvati's clothing on. It was like really weird.
That's funny. So you take all that stuff and then you kind of you go back to the groundbreaker and you kind of tell her like, hey, I'm really interested in you, and they have this whole date where they go onto the ship and they're like, Parvati's like, okay, we're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff, and you can overhear them for a little while, but eventually she's like, okay, get out of here. We want to talk, and it's really cute because like Junlei pulls out this like letter, and she starts reading it off about like, hey, here's why I like you, which is a weird thing to do in the middle of a day. It was like I have this prepared speech, but it was weird because like, she's like, oh yeah, get out, and then you walk out and she's in my party, so she's with me, and then you talk to her, and that's when I got to like, oh, that Junlei sure is swell, huh? And then so it's like, oh, okay, I guess I have to go back in now, and then she's like, oh yeah, she's swell. Like I like her a lot, and then you kind of conclude that storyline by saying like, yeah, she doesn't leave your party, which is kind of what I expected. It would have been a weird thing for this game to have like a positive way for someone to leave your party of like, look, I've settled down with this person. I'm not I'm not part of your party anymore.
You did too good of a job. Well, Jordan Edmond has a similar situation. He says, hey, did anybody else murder Junlei while she was having that date with
geez.
Parvati?
Similar, yeah.
I was morbidly curious and made 3 saves just in case. I walked up to her and shot her point blank with my combat shotgun. It's so f***ed up.
That's very cute. Check this out.
It immediately launched me into a conversation with Parvati where she was horrified. She will leave your crew if you can't talk her down. I felt so gross. I love that you can talk her down.
Yeah, it's like, well, you murdered
should
my
say-
girlfriend, but
you got that persuasion stat
Yeah.
boosted. You're good to go.
I felt so gross after I did it, even more than blowing up Megaton in Fallout 3. Yeah, I think like killing people, killing Nyoka, murdering all of Edgewater, I felt horrific about that. It's such a gross feeling.
I do love that it does take that into account, and it lets you do that. You know what I mean? Like,
But when her entire town is slaughtered, it's like,
I know,
what
but
are
I'm
you
saying
gonna do?
that's true.
Yeah, so those moments, because they're not like throughout the entire game, right? Like it'll sometimes reward you for making those choices, and sometimes it won't. Like the inconsistency there is maybe what kind of makes it fall apart. Like I wish there was a way that it's like if you do something horrific enough, if it plays out, if the logic plays out in the way you would expect it, like for example, murdering a whole town and seeing someone who's like, I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
I think whenever the game doesn't accommodate for that, I think it kind of shows the cracks in the entire thing.
That's true, but at the same time, I think maybe it becomes more academic at that point, but it's still like you got to give it up for a game just for having this many options. And if narratively, yes, there's going to be a downside, but I love that this type of game exists for that reason of just having such a broad swath that you can kind of wade through, even if it starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
But
Did you guys have that conversation before? Well, I don't think you probably had this, Hanson, but like before you go invade the last area where you're supposed to rescue Phineas, where you have the conversation.
the prison that is also like the place where the board is.
Yeah.
It's like weird.
No, it made a lot of sense. Charters made a lot of sense.
And everyone's kind of like trying to like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna do this or whatever.
Before you go to the prison?
Yeah. So before, and everyone's kind of talking to you, and that was like a situation where I would have liked more inter-party dialogue, but that wouldn't have worked because they would have had to account for so many situations. But did you guys have that like weird briefing where everyone was like, okay, we're gonna go do
we
this?
did too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We meaning us evil people.
Okay.
I mean, it's that moment which I'm glad has become a trend in games. I don't know, in the last 5 years or so of just like, hey, this is the end game.
I love it.
Like just so you know,
Right.
Which I
You're
like.
not
I
gonna
feel
be able
like
to come
it's
back.
kind of a recent thing, and I always
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I do like that it kind of is like all these people. Here's all these people bouncing off of each other. But I one thing that I didn't like was that at some point Sam plays like a very somber version of the Rizzo's theme. I don't know if you guys caught that.
No.
Did not catch that.
It was
What?
super funny. Because he just plays like because the Rizzo theme is whoa whoa whoa, it's Rizzo's.
No, we don't know that.
No, like when you're walking around Groundbreaker, but like he
sure.
plays like a.
Oh, funny.
And it's like a pretty good moment. Like he hears all the ways Sam can like express himself is just through catchphrases and stuff. And so for him to actually like have the awareness to say like, this is supposed to be a somber moment, but all I have to give you is the Rizzo's theme.
That's funny.
I didn't have him with me, which was a bummer for that. Like, you know, you do that meeting and then you have a chance to go do some more stuff, and I went and got Sam at that point. So I was kind of bummed. I was like, I would have liked to have him in that chat. You know,
It's funny for me because I never got him. I never woke him up. So the ending slide is going through all the characters, and then it's just a shot of him in the closet. Like there was a robot in the show.
That's awesome.
Like moving on.
Yeah.
Speaking of like different versions of the themes, like in my final, when I'm in the prison talking to Phineas over the intercom, and it's kind of like arguing with him, trying to get him to surrender, basically. And he's like, "Are you nuts? I can't surrender the board." And there was a 100 persuasion check, which I'm like, yes, I can hit this, and I did it, and he still wouldn't surrender. I was like, at 100,
really?
I do kind of like that though, as a rhetorical device of like, no, this guy is not going to back down.
I guess that's true, but they had like a somber version of the Outer Worlds theme there that was really cool. I don't know. Were you talking to somebody from the board over the intercom? Like,
Yeah, it's the chairman.
oh, it is okay.
Rockwell or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think we've kind of glossed over that part of it, where you sneak into his mansion and you're kind of talking to him about like, well, I'm supposed to be like the figurehead here, but the chairman Rockwell's basically locked me in here, and there's that whole promotional video where he's like trying to pitch people on his plan to like freeze everybody until we can figure something out. But
Okay, hang on. So yeah, that video for you, what did it look like?
It was like felt like a pre-rendered thing where it's like
Well, sure, but I mean, I don't know. For
it
me,
felt like the scene from 30 Rock where they tried to get Alec Baldwin's character to shoot a segment.
but it has outtakes in it.
Yes.
Okay, because it had
Yeah.
outtakes for me, and I was wondering, like, do I get to see this like uncut version because
that
I'm
would be
siding with the
interesting.
board
but
or something?
but they frame it as like, here's a rough cut, which
Yeah.
is like the roughest cut you could have put together.
Yeah.
But I think it was just to drive home, like, no, this is bad stuff, guys. You should know at this point.
I don't think I got the exact quote, which made me laugh. But there's something along the lines of where he's like, "Everyone will die," and he's like, "Oh no, we can't say that." And then it cuts back, and he's like, "Everyone will starve slowly from malnutrition," which is like, I thought that was really funny.
Yeah,
it is like that decent point from the board though, and that was Sophia. Like, I don't think she's a fully sympathetic character, but at some point they do try and like make the argument for the board, right? About just like, what do you think's going on here? Like, we're trying our best, and everyone will starve if all these people are revived. Plus, did you guys ever learn about like Phineas's backstory and stuff?
Yeah, I wanted to see what because that even came up in the end for me. It's like, will you forgive Phineas for what he did? And I was like, yeah,
It seems pretty reasonable.
Like he's like, it sucks that people died.
Okay, so you learned that like you weren't the first to be revived and all that stuff.
Like people died in his efforts to bring.
I mean, that's part of
everyone back
the
to
log
life.
entry that you found of like people's arms inflating with like
Yeah.
different fluids and stuff.
And maybe it's just like my moral compass, but I was like, that's fine. Like he was still trying to do the right thing, and it's like everyone dying versus he does a couple of experiments and a few people die and everyone wakes up.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
kind of like was how I felt about it. But I think they wanted you to see Phineas in a villainous light for that reason, and I didn't feel that way.
I feel like
Or
it's
at
part of
least,
the
like, have the option there.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
I feel
it
like
would be interesting to see like how skewed your view is of things depending on like what was driving you to make the choices that you were to begin with.
Yeah.
If that kind of sold it a little better.
I did a little bit because I liked role playing it in the way I felt, where it's just like, I like the idea of just waking up, being confused, and it's like, what is this? The board? Yeah, sure. When like a thread that kept popping up, and everybody just kept double checking to make sure. Are you sure you want to turn in Phineas? Are you sure? Like, it was so many "Are you sure" moments, even from Sophia. She's like, "Why are you doing this?"
This is the bad
It
ending.
really felt like that. But like, I love that idea of just like every once in a while when I was able to communicate, like, Phineas is using me and I don't appreciate it. Like, I had no say in this. He just woke me up and assumed that I would do his bidding, and it's like, F that, man. I don't want to do what this guy has to.
But you'd be dead otherwise.
Fine.
I'd rather die.
I'd rather die
be
than work
dead.
for a man.
I also do just want to say that like I really appreciate the whole overarching calamity that you're fighting against, which is that we have food on these planets. It's just there's not enough nutrients in them. So we're all essentially starving to death, and it doesn't. We can grow more of this food, but it's just not doing it for us.
Yeah.
Like that was an interesting kind of sci-fi concept of like you don't think that when you're thinking of we're traveling to other worlds and we're going to terraform these places. Just like, oh no, like the seeds for this were sowed a long time ago, and like there's not much we can do about it at this point.
Which is funny because like one of the things you do for Clark, the minister who's kind of been holed up in his house, was like send a relay message to Earth, because like to tell them like, hey, we need help, and they tell you like, hey, it'll take 3 to 9 months for this message to get to them, and probably longer for them to get here. So it's like you have this solution, but even that, it doesn't feel like, oh, we did it, we were saved. But I had like 2 funny moments going in because everyone was like, obviously in Byzantium, everyone was shooting at me. So I had the thing where I had to go to Clark's mansion and kill everyone in that first area, the lobby. And I kill everyone, and then all the people come back out, and there's like, one lady just kind of says like, "Oh, do we really need all the security? I don't know, because I had to pass 2 checkpoints to get in here." And then when I finally get to Clark, because it acknowledges that I hadn't taken the stealthy route and had killed everyone, and he kind of sells it in this weird way of like, "You've killed everyone just to get to me. What could be so urgent?" Like the fact that he's like, "Oh, you needed to see me really bad, and you killed everyone." Like, well, okay, well, like pitch me on what you have to say, I guess. And all I had to say was like, well, I was told to meet you.
So there's a list in this menu that I have.
Yeah.
I like I like role playing that, because when you turn Phineas in, they're like, okay, we'll go to his secret station and plant a tracker in his computer. So I did that. By the way, I think it's a very smart, subtle touch, like the idea that he's behind that bulletproof glass. It's like the only character they're like, gameplay-wise, we cannot have you kill Phineas, so we need to come up with some constructs to make it legitimate. It's like, put him behind the glass.
It's the Bioshock Dead Space approach.
Yes, exactly.
Like, you can't kill this person, but they have to tell you things.
But in the game where you can kill absolutely everybody, I love that. It's like, yeah, but this one, come on, you guys. But anyways, so I went there and put that tracking thing on his ship, and then at some point then when I was back on the Unreliable, Ada's like, I have to reassess my calculations for Phineas's intelligence that he has not found that tracking device very clearly.
Did you also, at some point, did you tell her that, like, did you explain that Hawthorne died because of you, basically?
I don't remember.
I think maybe when I first talked to her.
Okay, but like I think with the time that I did it, she also had this dialogue of like, look, I'm also like I am slowly figuring out how the ship can conquer the galaxy. Did she ever tell you guys that?
No. I never got that.
Okay, so Fava, you
was
got
kind of her. Yeah, she says that was her plan or whatever.
Yeah. So that was an interesting thing of like I wonder if that's something that's seeding into the next game. She's like, look, you're my captain, but I'm also trying to figure out like how to replace you because you have my captain's ID, but if you leave and die, I could always have another captain.
Oh right,
I got that dialogue.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did want the captain's ID. I love that idea, and I bet that the sequel will take you to a new galaxy or to Earth or something, and that Ada will be the one thing that comes through. Like, I could see that. But anyways, I wanted to say that I loved role playing it. That like I was a spy for the board and like secretly working against Phineas. But then I went and talked to Phineas after I planted that, and he had no idea that I'd done that. So he still like put me on the quest, including doing like the Radio Free Monarch quest, because he gave me like the nav key. But I'm like, I already got the nav key from the helper from Sophia, who also was a store and sold me like a lot of amazing stuff. But so then I went to Monarch to try that out, and it was like this very confusing sequence break thing where I went and talked to Hiram, and then it unlocked everything, blah, 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 blah. But the point is, I went and pretended like I was doing his quest, like, yeah, I'll go to Byzantium for you, Phineas. And then I talked to that bird lady, and then immediately when we were done with our conversation, I just took my vortex mace and like hit her over the head, and it was horrific because she was like dismembered and just like scattered across the cargo bay immediately. And then Parvati just screams her stock line when you finish a battle, and she goes, "We're pretty good at this." Like, oh my God, Parvati, have some dignity.
Now I'm the golden eagle or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Scott McRae says, I really enjoyed the finale of the game. The ending provided a satisfying opening for a sequel. Earth as a mystery to the outer world is a fascinating idea that I'm excited for them to explore in sequels. I developed a newfound sympathy for the board that was previously rather minimal, as being stranded and separated without aid from Earth and the other inner planets would make sustaining developing colonies a hectic nightmare. It explains why everything was so messed up. I assume you get the same explanation about Earth at the end?
That it's been dark, right?
So Phineas tells you this?
Phineas told me that they had not heard from Earth, that it had gone dark for like 3 years.
Yeah. Right.
And he overheard it from Sophia or something like that. I don't remember
Interesting.
exactly how it was, but like there were dialogue options where it can be like, all right, are you sure? Like, do you have proof of this? And there's an explanation for him being like, yes, I absolutely believe this to be true. You know, just in case the player didn't want to believe Phineas, you know, hearing it secondhand.
Yeah, obviously Sophia told me firsthand this is the problem. This is why it's so stressful.
Yeah.
And then, like, I guess at some point Chairman Rockwell died. I was unclear when that happened
he survived
in my
in
game.
my game.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
and so then it was like this weird thing. We're talking to Sophia at the end. One of the options was just like, I'm the only one who can get stuff done, as you can see, so I'm in charge now. And it was just like, there wasn't a persuade. It was just like one dialogue option. And then Sophia's like, yeah, of course, absolutely. Like, you're the new chairman. There's no problem here. It's like, oh my God.
So Chairman Rockwell survived in your game?
I believe so, yeah.
He was the guy who I had to kill after I killed the robot.
Yeah.
I didn't. I killed Sophia. He wasn't there.
Oh,
It's probably because we killed
because
Sophia
we
earlier.
Killed Sophia?
Oh, interesting.
So he got his own, what is it, like that, what is it,
Post
Fast
credits
Times at
now.
Ridgemont High was the first movie to do that. You know, like he got his own slide or whatever.
Oh, okay.
By the way, you know, people love the ending slides. They're like, oh, what an Obsidian classic. Goes back to the original Fallout and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But it's like you couldn't put a little Ken Burns effect, a little slow zoom on that. Because some of it was just cheap. It's like, but the Ellie still was just like a shot from the trailer of her. I'm like, just make it move a little. Like, it's so weird.
I do like it. I don't know if we want to skip to that, but like, I like that it's just like, here's everything that happened.
And it's pretty
to
thorough.
which is good because it's like, and I would take that over like a pre-rendered 3-minute cutscene or something like that. You know, like I would rather just have a detailed, like, this is what everyone is doing. This is what happened. Some people died later. Some, you know, like for the way the game kind of like putters out at the end, I do feel like everyone gets a nice conclusion, even if it's just not very flashy.
Like,
you know?
the substance of their conclusions, I think, is strong, but like the way it's delivered is a little bit like.
But it's fine for that much flexibility. It's like I
Yeah.
didn't mind it
I
too
was
much.
not
Yeah.
offended.
And it's the kind of thing that like Mass Effect should have done this, right? Like,
Yeah.
like they were so concerned about being able to fit everything into like a what was probably an expensive cutscene to put that stuff in. Like, just give us slides that tell us, you know, like actual changes based on the decisions that we made through that.
Yeah.
I also think it helps that, you know, in Mass Effect, it all ends up converging on like this fate of the entire universe thing, where it's a lot more localized, where it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen to the people here? Like, there's no like, you know, what's going to happen to all life on Earth as we know it because of these like, you know, precursor aliens or whatever. So it's more about
Jack
like
and
how
Daxter
are people going to continue to survive in this in these like outer worlds.
And I think I love that idea too, that this feels so self-contained and like it can have so many variables, because I think pretty clearly like they just go to another system in the sequel and like you don't got to worry about any dangling threads or anything like that. So like it leaves more room for experimentation, which is really great. But like trying to think of things that stood out to me in those ending slides, and one of them was that like Felix, like his brain and heart broke after we sided with the board. So it's like he just wandered off and he was never seen again. And then it's like Parvati had a tough time opening up to the crew, and she felt more connected to Ada than anybody else. At a certain point, she disappeared as well, but we assume she's in a better place.
I got
Oh my God.
that too, probably because I got along with Parvati. She did, but I didn't finish her side quest. That's probably why I left it that way.
she's better off in ours, you know.
Yeah, we did the
we're
super good
people.
one, right?
Yeah.
Where basically it says that she moves into the Groundbreaker with Junlei, and that they were always not far apart from each other.
Who was this Isabel person? Because she was so worried about like this love letter where Junlei was talking about Isabel as another woman, and it was like, is there going to be some twist where it's like her mother-in-law or something, and it's just a misunderstanding?
I don't think so.
That was a little bit.
That was just like an ex-girlfriend, supposedly.
Yeah, something like that. She wasn't like a huge major character.
That I think Parvati just jumped to conclusions, but then it was like, no, that's in the past or whatever.
Yeah.
What did you think about the angle of Parvati being like, I don't like physical contact? Did you take it as just she's uncomfortable? Did you take it as that she's asexual? What did you guys read?
Asexual.
Is that what's going on there?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, they've talked about it, you know, post-release. That
really?
She was
Oh,
meant to
yeah.
be an asexual character.
Oh, that's
Which I
interesting.
think was really well done.
But
Yeah.
then she also has like the love angle. It's like an interesting
She's
duality.
asexual, not aromantic.
Yes,
so,
exactly. Yeah. It's like what a weird modern character for a
Yeah,
game. To have
I like
detail.
that.
I think they did
they
a
bring
really
it
good
up as
job
a
with
plot
it,
point. Like they do a pretty good job of balancing it so that it's like, hey, look, this is relevant to the quest line we're doing.
Yeah, it's
but it's
not
not
just
like
like,
this is me. This is like the entire defining trait for this character.
100%.
Yeah, because there's also in Death Stranding, there's like some emails that you can read
that
about
say,
the
like,
sort of asexual nature of modern humanity, which is like handled weirdly and like
they kind of just like toss it aside as like, hey, by the way, as a result of what's going on with the Death Stranding, the asexual population has skyrocketed.
And like Parvati's like, I think that's one of the interesting things about the game is I think they really executed well on what is like a modern sort of like current day sort of sexuality that people define themselves by, and it's like you don't see that a lot in video games. You see that's usually like one way or the other, and it's just this like weird element of their character, and it's not ultimately important to the story. But I think here it was well done.
Yeah,
it's executed well.
As another like another point of comparison was like for me, Felix. They talked about like, well, you know, the revolution that Felix was always hoping for never really happened.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't know if it was meant to be as like a hey. You know, people who want revolution to happen, like it never happens the way you expect it to. It always is slower versus like, you know, acute versus chronic. But I wondered if like that, the fact that the game is so based on decisions and the ramifications in different paths, I wonder if that was because like I hadn't done like a quest for him or something, or if that was just the lesson the game was trying to impart.
I did his quest and it still ended that way, which I think maybe because you like go to find his mentor or whatever, and I ended up shooting his mentor because
that'll do it.
His mentor was dumb. Felix was still just the biggest dud for me in this entire cast. Like I didn't spend a lot of time with him, which maybe was my fault, but every time that I did, he just sucked. And I got to that mission where you go to meet Chartrand, you know, where you're supposed to kill her, but when you start talking to her, she's like, no, like I really care. I'm trying to like save humanity basically and figure out a way to alter our DNA so that we can get the nutrients that we need. And then she's like, so, you know, make your decision. Like, are you going to kill me or not? And I had Parvati and I put Felix into my party because I needed his perception check because he boosted my perception up so I could actually talk it through. And Parvati's like, well, you know, like she sounds sincere. Like it seems like, you know, like she's really trying to help. And then they turn to Felix and he's like, she's working with the aliens, like she's trying to kill us all. And
just
it's like, you're such an idiot.
Yeah. I guess I liked him for that reason.
And then
having an idiot with you.
But then I guess, but then on his mission with, you know, his mentor again, it's like the guy calls him because he wants to start a revolution and he wants Felix to join the revolution. And as you're doing the mission, you find out that he's actually working for the board. Like his mentor.
The mentor.
Yeah, okay. Like on the down low. And so you talk to like one, you know, the guy sends you to murder this person who's supposedly defected or whatever, and that guy's like, no, he's working for the board. And you're like, do you have proof of that? And he's like, yes, I have proof. I stashed it. You can get this proof. And then you turn to Felix and he's like, oh, you're a liar. You just suck. And it goes back to the guy and he goes, go piss up a rope, kid. Like, I don't care what you think. And then when he said that, I was like, yes, Felix, go piss up a rope. Like you just suck. Like you're so naive and you're so stupid about everything.
I'm sorry, is that a turn of phrase?
I don't know.
It is now.
What do you guys think about the swearing in this game? I think there's a lot more than I expected.
It is always jarring to me when someone drops the F-bomb.
I'm in the same camp of like, it seems unnecessary. Look,
it's funnier if you censor it, honestly.
I think so, yeah.
Tim Holt, I hope you like it when Felix's mentor told him to bleep up a bleep for this version.
Yes.
Tim Holt says...
Wait, why are you bleeping rope?
Shut up! Tim Holt says, I had a good laugh during Vicar Max's companion quest. It led me to a hermit down by a creek with whom Max had some history. Max really wanted to beat him up, and I restrained him, but the option kept coming up in dialogue. I was expecting something akin to Shepard punching the reporter, so I figured, sure, take your shot, Max. Turns out things escalated quick, guns were drawn, and the hermit will never be leaving that riverbank. I had Felix in my party during the drug scene later in the quest. Felix was a complete a-hole and made fun of Max during the whole scene. It was funny banter, but it made me wonder what kind of support Max would have received if I had a more supportive companion in my party at the time. Did anyone else have unsupportive companions together during key moments in a particular companion's quest?
I feel like as a whole, I don't know that they like... There are a few key moments where they do interact with each other, but like that moment with Chartrand, I think was like one of the first times that it kind of stood out to me that was like, okay, before I make the decision, what do you guys think? I feel like that didn't happen as often as I would have liked, where it didn't feel like I was consulting with my party as much as I would have expected to.
There was the moment in Edgewater too.
Yeah, where Parvati kind of tells you.
And I really like those moments. Yeah. I do wish there were.
I wish there were more of them. So it never felt like to his question, I don't think that I got enough of those moments to really like get a feel for like, okay, how would these two party members interact with each other separate from me?
Right. Yeah, there's little things like Ellie and Parvati's dialogue was kind of interesting. Like, I think it was Parvati that said at some point, like, I know you don't really like me much, do you? It was like this weird discussion about like, we're not getting along well, which is fun.
Which is very Parvati too.
Right.
Of just like trying to get everyone on board of like, do you like me? And if you have her with Nyoka, she's like, I fixed your gun, or like, like I tweaked your gun or whatever. And she's like, you touched my gun, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I like those moments. On the Vicar quest, I had Nyoka with, and she just liked tripping, basically, which is very much her character too.
Yeah.
Just
let's see. Dr. Berg 13, what do you call this fella?
Dr. Big 13.
Dr. Big 13 says, hey, MinnMax crew, am I the only one that got to the final mission with only 2 crew members? Ended up going back and recruiting everyone before finishing the game, but I find it incredibly interesting that it's even possible to miss so much of the game in your first place. It really feels like you're given absolute freedom. Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, I had everybody except for Sam, and I guess Nyoka in this version, since I went back.
Since you murdered her.
I just didn't want to do that caffeine pills thing again. It's like, she's drunk.
I would rather murder you than do this little fetch quest
Walk
for you.
into the building
I
next
just
door.
want to see if it's possible. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. I'd like to keep that. I'd like to keep that playthrough.
That is interesting. You're right.
Thank you.
Murderer.
Let's see. I guess we talked about it a little bit, but Chris Bartlett just says, it should theoretically have been really cool to see all the people you helped throughout the game come back to help you in the prison break mission. But because it's so much easier to just use your disguise for that entire zone, it kind of fell flat. How did you find the final mission of the game?
I blasted my way through there.
I did the exact same thing. That was like the one time that was what helped me figure out how stealth worked in that.
That was the final mission
was
of the
the
game.
final mission of
That's
the game
not a good
before-
sign.
Yeah, so like you sneak around and eventually you run out, and I think I don't fully understand it yet, but at some point you have to get someone to walk up to you and say like, hey, what are you doing here? And if your persuade is high enough, you can be like, don't worry about it, and then you'll get like all
Another
of your
boost,
your
yeah.
bar back, but you only have
Right.
3 uses in those areas. You only can do that 3 times. So it was a matter of like walking around, sneaking around, and making sure I got to the end by doing that stuff. So it felt
Right.
really gamified in a way that didn't actually feel like stealth, but I was able to get through it without, So it was all these things like, hey, everyone's died. Like, here's this huge battle going on. But I was like, oh, I'm just gonna walk right by you guys.
So
and
the groundbreaker like pulled up and like
Yeah.
dropped soldiers off. Did that happen?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
you guys too?
Yeah, so it was
Okay.
like June late for me, and I was like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
I thought you wouldn't come because I'm with the board, but
Yeah.
all right. And then all of a sudden it's like somebody's like, Iconoclast. Like, wait, you freaks are here too? Like, I guess I accidentally sided with you.
They all died before I even went in the first room, though.
Oh,
so
sure.
I was
Weird.
like, well, I guess I'm on my own.
Yeah, those missions where they're trying to like have a big battle, it's like not your strong suit. Even like on Monarch, there's that mission where it's like, all right, the Iconoclasts are now going to war with the MSI, and it's like we're waging war on this road. It's like I thought it was one of the weakest missions of the game because like it's just not climactic or action packed, and even this it was just kind of like a scattered like, wait, what's happening here? Who's shouting what?
Yeah. And I was trying to do that stealth too, because at that point, again, the board hated me and was trying to kill me on sight. But then, a little bit, like a couple rooms in, all these other people start streaming and like, hey, we're here to support you, and start shooting. And it's like, well, okay, I guess I'm shooting my way through this.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate what they were trying to do with that, of kind of having the people that you helped come back. There was like one squad on Terra 2, I think, that it was just a random side mission of like, hey, can you help Zola's or Zora's, mercenaries or whatever? And they show up. It's like the actual characters that you
that's cool.
saved during that part. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. I
Edgar
appreciate that.
Vasquez writes in and says, hey, fine, I give up. Hey, MinnMaxers. By the way, somebody DM'd me or sent me a message on Twitter or whatever and said like, hey, you should call your community the Mindies. I like Mindies.
Well, that would just seem like big Mindy Kaling fans.
Oh, I immediately thought of
I mean, I do love the Mindy Project. Great
who's your
show.
number one Mindy reference, Jeff? I'm going to say Mindy.
Patankin?
Patankin. I immediately thought of that Simpsons.
Mandy's wife, yeah.
But anyways, those Simpsons, remember where Homer like gets the crush on Mindy who works in the...
Oh, no, I don't remember that one.
Really? Anybody? Homer loves Mindy?
no.
I'll just push
The singer?
button. No, remember, like, she gets on the elevator with Homer, and they're in the elevator in the power plant, and then Homer goes, it looks like we'll be going down together. I mean, getting off together. I mean, I'll just push the button for the stimulator. I mean, the elevator. And then it just becomes so uncomfortable. He's like, well, this is my stop. And he hits the emergency stop button. And then he's like prying the doors open. And it's like, he just walks out and he's like sliding down like the big nuclear coolant tower. Anyways, it's very funny. Check out The Simpsons, everybody. And thanks for writing in, Edgar. We got to move on. No, he says, I very much enjoyed my ending and what it could mean for a sequel, but I think the last couple hours were really disappointing, especially the labyrinth. Is that?
I think that's the name of the place where you go
Yeah,
to.
what a labyrinth it is.
Yeah.
It was cool to see other factions come in and help, but I didn't find all that much lore to read in it. The game had so much extra reading material that throughout the entire game, the labyrinth felt like a shooting gallery. I really wanted to see what the guards were up to, and the hell there wasn't any other prisoners in there. I'm confused. Please fill me in if I'm missing anything.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a prison. Didn't feel like a labyrinth. It was just like, and then, like I stated earlier, like then you go upstairs and it's like, oh, I guess this is like where the board lives.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this place?
I think the chairman was visiting there.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
at least in our version, he was visiting there to, I think, execute Phineas. Like they were going to record
Yeah,
it.
because
there's
you
a
had like
broadcast
the
screen
TV
set
studio.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Like there's a message. I think it's on the computer, right, where it's like, do you know how hard it was to find a green tarp this big? Well, that's nice. I liked the hope though, and I thought it was pretty clever that it was like, oh, it's the sister ship to the Groundbreaker, therefore like the landing bay is like identical.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's time and budget, I guess,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And then I liked going in there. And then every time I was trying to sneak around so much, and every time I was caught by the robots, I was able to use persuade. I assume you guys had something like this too,
Yeah.
and just like tell them that what you just said was a lie, and then like it breaks their dumb computer brain, and you don't have to
Yeah.
fight them at all, which is really fun.
By the way, to go back just a little bit, when you can skip jump the hope, right?
Yeah,
There's that moment where it's like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And in most games, I've been like, yeah, we're fine. Like we need this. This will be at the end of the game. You're trying to build it up to be something, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like the narrative is going to take us there. I don't think this is going to be a problem. But here in the Outer Worlds, like I did have a moment of pause where I was like, considering how everything else has gone up to this point. Like I accidentally took all the chemicals. I took 100% of the chemicals and like killed everybody because I didn't read all the sort of data and stuff.
That'll happen.
Yeah. And so like I thought that moment was cool because I genuinely wasn't sure if we were going to make it. Like,
Right.
And like I don't get that a lot in games when it's a big narrative moment like that because usually you know what's going to happen and it's, you know, it's satisfying for those things to happen. But here I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's push the button. And it was like, okay, we made it.
Did you have like the hope computer jump into like, hey, everyone will die if you do this. Don't do this, you idiots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I got all those dialogue.
And they had one dialogue choice where it's like, I'm going to do this manually
Yep.
versus having the computer do it. I was like, wait, do I want to do it manually? Is
Did
there
you?
a reason? No, I didn't. So
I
don't
did.
know.
So I chose, I want to do it manually. And then there was an option of intelligence or science that was a really high check versus like, never mind, I'll let you do it after all, Ada. But if you have the option, there is a dumb option that pops up in there. Rich McLaughlin writes in saying, my second playthrough was a big old dummy, and the Praise the Sun ending was hilarious. And I went back and watched it, and you can go, if you have the dumb option, you're like, I got this. And then Ada's like, are you sure? And the Hope computer's like, hey, I did the calculations. There's not supposed to be a negative number in here. It's like, don't worry about it. And you just thrust it, and you just fly right into the sun, and then it cuts to credits.
that's
It's very
fantastic.
good.
amazing.
I
It's
love
very
that.
good.
That's so funny.
Joe Swak. Yeah, because I remember on the cover story trip, I remember Tim Kaine talked about that. He's like, there is an ending that I'm so excited about, which is just a dumb ending where you can say, I got it, and then it doesn't go well. So I was hoping that was going to be
that's
it. And
awesome.
that's obviously what it was. Joe Zwak says, I love this game, and especially a lot of the dumb dialogue options. Two great dumb options at the end in Tartarus. While hacking the computer to shut down the RAM, you had to get through 3 passwords, and the dumb options for each were 1, 2, 3, 4, typed randomly, and shout at the screen. And all 3 worked, which made me laugh.
That's funny.
Last dialogue with Wells had a dumb option where you admit to daydreaming about ice cream and not paying attention. So at the very end of the story recap, the narrator says you realized every moment was leading to this ice cream and it was all worth it. So I still wasn't paying attention.
That's good.
God, that option almost makes me want to replay the game.
Yeah,
like
just to
go,
see
just
full
going
dumb.
through that. Yeah, like I don't care enough to want to go around with different party members or anything like that. But having just a stupid playthrough.
To fly into the sun at the
Yeah.
end. So how do you do that, by the way? Do you just not put it at that very start of the game? You don't put any points.
I
in,
would
like,
think so.
something like
Yeah,
that,
because you can go negative if you want to
Yeah.
like kind of reallocate stuff. So I guess
Because I had
you
it my
could-
first game, or one of the games, because I restarted this game so many times and all that stuff. But yeah, my latest one, I didn't see any dumb options. Let's see. Carl Nielsen says, I found the ending to be kind of anticlimactic, but funny nonetheless. I used my persuade skill to get an ID, and while I infiltrated the place in disguise, people like Sanjar and Sublight would barge in and yell things like, we got your back. I really liked it. I didn't have to go through a big shootout in the end, but I felt kind of disconnected to the main story. I know Obsidian probably went for a faceless corporation angle, but I felt like the main antagonist Felt like a main antagonist could have helped the story arc overall. I guess it's kind of the chairman, but he's so distant.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
you don't see him until the very end.
I think it also is weird because, as we've talked, there's like a lot of permutations to that ending and a lot of ways it can happen. And I think that also is like a weird thing because then you don't have like a defining thing that they can work on to say like, this is the bad guy.
Totally.
Here's how we're going to flesh him out and make him. Instead, they have like several different ways and they kind of have to work within all those, which is, I think, a thing that's going to happen in games like this where eventually becomes a lot about exploring and kind of gaming the different options versus like, what is a natural story progression here? It's just becomes about making sure that there are a lot of ways to go down versus like are these paths meaningful and like very often they are, like they do lead to interesting stories, but a lot of it also has to do with like, well, what would happen if I did this? That becomes the motivator versus like what is a realistic way for this to play
100%. I wasn't playing up the way I wanted to. I was, I mean, also for the sake of this game club, I'm like, well, somebody has to side with the board, so I'm going to just push it this direction. And it can feel really disconnected.
Yeah, it reminded me of like when you read a choose your own adventure book and like, well, obviously early on you die, so at some point you're just kind of like reading it out of order and just kind of like, oh, okay, well, what happened if I did this? Like you eventually just start reading the entire book versus like, well, here's my journey.
Yeah.
Again, you might be Peter Fontana. I really think you need to check your ID.
Well, let me check my ID.
Because he writes in and says, so I set up my character at the beginning to be a brutish moron just to see if I could mess up the game a bit. However, I gave my character high perception. All in all, this was probably a bad move. My character's dialogue was all over the place. One moment I'd be dumb as a rock, and next I'd be able to perceive what someone really meant. Yeah, that's again the penalty of having a game so flexible, right?
Yeah.
Several people wrote in with this issue, which is interesting. Joe Para says, it was an awesome ride all the way until running into the game-crashing bug with Chairman Rockwell. It was against my character to kill him, so I was half tempted just to call it quits with less than an hour left in the game. I did a little searching online, and luckily with a little platforming, I was able to access the back door of the room and talk him into being my puppet. Did any of you run into this bug? No, but I saw some people in the comments that Grizzled Gaming did, and also Shane Carley here says, I'm surprised that no one else had mentioned this, but I hit a game-breaking bug at the very end of the game. The moment I stepped through the door to Chairman Rockwell, the entire game would crash on me. No amount of rebooting or reloading old saves would fix it. I took a look online. It seems like a lot of other people had the same issue. I was eventually able to find a workaround by sending away my companions. For some reason, if you walk in solo, the bug doesn't trigger, but that meant I had to finish the rest of the game solo too, since I couldn't go back to the ship and retrieve them. For a game that's so character-focused, it was a real shame not to be able to hear my companions' reactions to the endgame decisions. Even worse, as a leadership-heavy character, it made the final boss disproportionately hard.
I can see that, yeah.
The fact that it's this far after launch and Obsidian still hasn't fixed a known game-breaking issue is really disappointing. I enjoyed the game very much, but it left a sour taste in my mouth. There was a patch on Monday, which for some people was saying made them re-download the entire game. So I don't know if that addressed it. I know it like fixed UI font issues and stuff like that.
Increased text size options and stuff.
Yeah,
that's a bummer. I'm glad they were able to figure out even a workaround, even if it was a disappointing one.
Yeah, for sure. James Lee says, I kind of regretted not turning Phineas in earlier. It might have made it more interesting. Again, by the end of the game, I didn't know or care what happened to me. I was using the same weapons for the whole game, and none felt good to use. There's definitely good potential in a sequel to Obsidian getting a bigger budget, and I look forward to a sequel. If they have a bigger backing next time around, this will definitely be a great evolution of the game. Yeah, what about just like gameplay-wise? Weapons, you guys just stuck with what you had?
Yeah, I mean, that gun I mentioned last time, and then I also ended up with like a 1500 DPS like flamethrower, which I ended up using, and that did pretty well, but yeah, I don't think the combat in this game is the reason to come to it at all. Like, I don't think it's great.
I never was using science weapons. I don't even know if I found one.
Yeah, like,
I might have found one and just got rid of it.
Yeah, I would experiment them when it's like, oh, cool, if this turns them into glue, this resizes them, but I didn't find them super useful.
Yeah.
Like, I gave the hammer to Parvati, and that kind of just let that be that, and that was pretty effective with her. But
yeah, my science stats were so low that even when I eventually then found them, I'm like, I can't use this. It seems interesting, and the shrink ray is fun to experiment with, but outside of that, I'm not going to keep using these.
Yeah, I was boosting my science level the whole time, and I used the science hammer the entire time, but the rest of them, I just they weren't super useful.
I just wanted to do more damage. Maybe I'm not fun, but I just was like, give me a gun that has the most DPS. And I'm happy.
Bill Faulkner says, I decided to get the Platinum Trophy on PS4 for Outer Worlds since I was already well on my way with 3 different playthroughs up to Byzantium. Most of it was actually a lot of fun going for certain achievements, like trying to hit an enemy with every science weapon at the same time or shooting enemies using the time dilation and the growing 30 times. Silly, but different. After doing all this, and all there is to do, I've come to a very important conclusion. The only way to get the most out of the game is to play on supernova difficulty. I typically find difficulty spikes and aspects like hunger and thirst to be annoying, but none of the drawbacks ever made too big of an impact. In a lot of instances, it actually gave the right amount of tension for encounters. All it took was a little patience. And dumping all my points into leadership and science. If you ever play through again, I recommend playing that way. I was really happy going all in on Persuade. It just came in handy so many times compared to everything else.
Yeah. I mean, just pumping those conversation stats like was always good. You know what I mean? And like it wasn't until I was about halfway through the game that I was like, I just should be throwing a lot more in there.
Right.
know?
James Hahn says the game feels like it was overhyped. I think releasing it after two former huge RPG studios are bombing may have contributed to that hype. Yeah. I think there's definitely a solid foundation for future sequels. The main story is a huge disappointment. The gameplay felt too samey all the way through. I also don't think the skill system was well done. I maxed out Persuasion, but the highest skill check was in the 60s. Not true. That one at the end was 100, but it didn't do anything.
There are a few 100, I think, for most of the non-traditional approaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like you didn't need to specialize in anything. Just get everything to like 40 to 60, and you'll pass most skill checks, which I think is fair.
Yeah, and I did feel like the skill at the end. I felt like the skill system was wonky. Like I appreciate in the early hours you're putting it into a larger bucket, and that's like boosting 3 stats at a time. I appreciate that, but then when you hit 50, it feels like such a waste to put 10 more points into just one. Like you're only putting it into one thing. So I ended up like boosting a lot of things up to 50 just to min-max my stats at that point.
Yeah,
and then there. You get to that point where it's like, well, the armor that I'm wearing can boost my, most of my dialogue things up to 100, which is the highest that you need.
Yeah.
Or I think leadership is probably overpowered just because you get those bonuses from your party members, and there are a couple perks that kind of play into that too. And then a lot of the perks I just didn't care about. Yeah, I felt like 3/4 of the way through I got everything that I wanted, and that's when I started getting more of the. You can pick a character flaw. Like you get shot so many times, you can pick a character flaw. I was like, well, I don't want any more perks.
I was with that same camp. Every time those flaws popped up in this playthrough, I was like, I'm good. Like the perks aren't that good.
And it might be a thing where if you played on Supernova, that might be more relevant.
Totally. Grizzled Gaming says, "What's up with the planets Eridanos, Typhon, and Olympus? You can't land on them. Do you think they were cut for time and budget reasons, or are they possible DLC?" Yeah, it feels a little bit like God of War, where you have like the realms where it's like, what's going on with those? A lot of people were curious about it. I think that's probably DLC, right?
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah, or they just wanted to, I don't know, like it's intriguing, and I think even in God of War, it is intriguing to know that there are other places that you can't go to.
Also,
like it makes the world feel bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in God of War, they kind of have to have those realms because they're working
established.
out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Neuroflare says, playing this game made me realize that what I really want from a game is exploring derelict spaceships and reading, watching, and hearing logs from crew members as things go from normal to wrong, be it food shortages or mechanical failures. As I write this, I realize I'm likely describing Return to the Obra Dinn in space.
Or Tacoma.
But I don't need the puzzles. Oh, that is Tacoma.
Yeah.
I was like, God, this sounds familiar. And I thought of Observation as well that came out earlier this year, which J.B. Goltney really liked as well.
I also liked it.
Oh, really? Is that what it is? It's just kind of observing a spaceship
it's a little less reading, but it is a lot of like, okay, this thing happened while I was gone. I was here, but I have to figure out what happened here.
Yeah. Right.
But Tacoma is literally looking at like that's the whole game is looking at logs.
Remember Tacoma?
Tacoma Gone Home?
Thank you for saying my joke. No one has talked about that.
That joke? I mean, it's okay.
What's wrong with everybody? Why isn't Tacoma Gone Homa spreading around the galaxy?
The hashtag.
When you were talking about it, and I was like, oh, what was that game?
Yeah.
That was what popped in my head. I was like, it was the Gone Home Tacoma. And that's like how I remember it.
Mnemonic device.
But yeah, I don't know. That game was kind of underwhelming.
Just to try and remember
To answer your question, I think that game was just kind of underwhelming. But you should play it, Neuroflare.
Yeah, please.
Like it.
Please. Let's see. Onfam says, after having played the crap out of this game and getting the platinum trophy, la-di-da. The biggest thing bugging me is how little Obsidian tried to make the board sympathetic in any way. The flip of what somebody else said. Ooh. There really wasn't any incentive to side with the board and screw everyone over other than just to be a cruel bastard. And honestly, it didn't change the story progression that much either. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts on the matter. I feel like we covered it a little bit, but like, I think they did enough of just like, hey, running this thing's hard, especially when they, in the end, like somebody else mentioned, then you realize that like they can't talk to Earth, and so they need some supplies and they're panicking. And like,
I like that your sympathetic angle is it's hard.
It's hard.
To be the board.
There's a lot of people here.
It's true.
No, but I had that one conversation with Sophia where she was like, "Yeah, she kind of look. We're doing the best we can. We have to figure out a plan to help everyone, otherwise everyone dies." But then, like when she immediately flipped to, "Well, obviously the best people to keep alive are everyone in Byzantium, right?" And that was okay. No, screw you. I'm gonna.
Yeah,
Right,
you're dead.
right.
I think that's one situation where the satire is kind of working against that other option. Like you can try and balance things out, but so much of the humor is, hey, corporations are stupid and
Right.
they don't get people and those kind of things that I think it makes it less sympathetic.
Right. Yeah, I do think it's interesting that I felt like my playthrough when I was going through, I was like, oh, this is all crazy different. Like, I wonder if you guys, if you're working with the prisoners at the end, but it's like, turns out it's just kind of that swap of them in the final, and we're kind of going through the same motions, including like everybody coming to rally to you. It was, I think it was shocking, the idea that how much longer it was, because you guys are saying it wasn't that long after landing on Byzantium, but for me it was like, since you had to go back and do all those missions you missed, it's basically like landing on Byzantium and then the middle chunk of the game begins, which I thought was an interesting structure.
That's interesting how they just kind of juggle up the planets that you go to.
Right. And then there's also like a whole section where you had to like take out a cartographer. I take it you guys didn't have that?
I don't think so.
Okay, the corporation's like, hey, or the board said, hey, we need you to kill this cartographer. She has secret stuff. And you go to try and kill her, and then you run into somebody else that was also hired to try and kill her. And it's like this very clear thing where it's like, I'm just going to kill her. I don't care about this guy at all. But he really is persuasive. And it's that moment of like, wait, now we're like working together. Like, I don't want this at all. Like, all right, I guess. But it's kind of a fun little storyline in there. Daniel Dwiggins, he says, well, I was
Really
talking
scoring points by making fun of people's names. Please subscribe to our Patreon.
That's how I thank them for writing in. So, Dwiggy here, he says, well, I was talking to Sophia Conde right before heading off to Tartarus. I noticed that I had unlocked the achievement Mightier Than the Sword, which I got for permanently saving Edgewater. Since I convinced the deserters to return to Edgewater and work again, I figured this was a pretty common achievement and didn't think much of it. But then as I was looking at everything I unlocked at the end, I saw that 1.08 of players had unlocked that specific one. I thought I'd been playing the game in a pretty vanilla-flavored way, so it surprised me to see that it was that rare. It really reminded me of all the ways you can play this game and that you can make so many little decisions that can have a big impact. Also, seeing the slideshow at the end was, as a kind of epilogue based on your decisions, was an awesome way to look back on everything you did throughout the entire game. Yeah, that's interesting. The Mightier Than the Sword. So then you didn't have to go kill everybody?
It would be fun to go look at those achievement stats for that game, you know.
Yeah, for sure. This is going to be a mess. Dylan Lloyd says, I did not think any main quest had an interesting ending. Specifically, the Sublight faction quest had interesting plot and choices, but ultimately ended with a whimper and no resolution. I felt that way about most of the main plot points. What is the Sublight faction? What am I missing?
I think that's the one that ends with the
That's the
conspiracy.
alien
yeah.
one, right?
Oh,
That's the
okay,
one
so
that
I
ends
didn't see
with
that one at all.
conspiracy.
Okay.
I think the one with the iconoclasts and the MSI, I think that one ends decently. Like, it's not like a huge triumphant moment, but
Right.
it is a quest that kind of follows the conclusion that you expect without being boring.
Yeah. Chris Bartlett says, who did a great job writing in with a ton of stuff. Chris says, the early retirement lottery quest was one of my favorite in the game. The rude lady who asks you to investigate it because she thinks she's entitled to be able to go wherever she wants is immediately unlikable and only becomes more unlikable as you talk to her. Of course, the retirement district is actually a death pit, and after discovering this, I told the lady it was a damn paradise and sent her to die. I was very happy to have that choice for spending most of the game being a good guy. What was your favorite side quest?
Yeah, and that I had that same moment where you talk to her and she's just so obnoxious, and I was like, okay, it's obviously going to be a death pit, and I really hope that they give me the option to send her to lie to her and send her there.
Fun.
It was one of those moments where it's like, man, the developer should really do this, and it turns out they did this.
They're very
Yay!
smart. Yeah. Michael Newman says, well, the rose-tinted glasses we were all wearing during the first episode have certainly fallen off.
They slipped off for me. They didn't stay. They
Slowly
didn't get-
sliding down your nose.
That's like more like, you know, Grant in the Jurassic Park sliding.
I see. I'm on the side of a lot of the folks here where the last third of the game just didn't quite click for me. I felt the lack of emotional through line really diminished for me carrying throughout the story. I know people tend to bash Fallout 4. However, I think the story beats with regards to your family in that game really hit for that and give you a good purpose to keep striving forward. I've had more emotional attachment to bags of potato chips than I did for the meat popsicles on the Hope. Send them all into the sun for all I care. Well, you can have that.
That's an option.
Well,
That's
wait
an
for the
option.
sequel for the potato chip. So you have to see.
Tim Holt says, my overall experience has been up and down. I loved the game at first, but partway through Monarch up to Byzantium, my enthusiasm diminished. I was focusing largely on the main quest, doing lots of traveling, have a dialogue with the quest giver, giving an item, fast traveling again, turning it into a quest. Yeah, I mean, we talked about that. It's a lot of jumping around. And also, like, it drove home that idea of just, like, it's just a lot of going to the ship navigation computer. And, like, it becomes more and more weird how travel works. You just, like, select that location on that little map, and then it's just like, we're here, Captain. It's like this weird, abrupt jump.
And
like
then long load to just walk out your door instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always expected the load to take place when I'm going between planets. Like, that makes sense, but it's like, oh, we're here already? Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the first emails pointed out that the fact that Byzantium has so many places where you enter it and that requires a load time really slowed down.
Totally.
Byzantium.
On
too.
the ship thing, I love this. I'll get back to your other point in a second here. But Edward Bailey says, one weird tiny thing. When you choose a landing spot, Ada says, now in orbit over Fallbrook, or now in orbit over Stellar Bay, depending on what you choose. But those two locations are like 600 meters apart. How can you differentiate between the two when you are thousands of kilometers above the planet's surface? Not a criticism, just another super nitpicky thing that bugged me. That is funny. I love that idea. Okay, back to Tim. I know this is a reductive view, but I feel like I was going through the motions and not enjoying the little moments. It basically felt like I was playing the game wrong, which is ironic when it's a game that you can play any way you want. At this point, I listened to episode 1 of The Deepest Dive, and it was great to hear other experiences and remind myself about all the small moments I did enjoy. I was ready to hand ingredients over to Phineas. Instead, I went back and completed companion quests, which so far are nowhere near as interesting as those in Mass Effect 2 and 3, but still enjoyable. And I got the science weapons. This has been a good change of pace and had me with a good feeling as I headed into the final act of the game. Yeah, I think everyone's critical, and I get that of the ending, but it is just like, you got to give it up for this game existing at all. And I hate for that just to be a dumb mantra of like, give it up, everybody. But like, this is like a miracle hardcore RPG, and it's a miracle that Private Division chose to fund it to begin with, and now Microsoft has a decent-sized franchise ready to go into the future, all because Private Division, this division of 2K, wanted to take a chance on just this hardcore, weird RPG, right?
Yeah.
And also, just another shout out to the idea that this is a game that you can actually do everything in.
Yeah.
Like, there's like all the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, it's just impossible to put that much time into it. And I like the fact that we've had several people say, like, yes, I platinumed this game. I enjoyed it. I was able to actually go through and do everything that it offers me.
And a lot of people wrote in saying that, like, it's rare to have a game roll credits and immediately they said, I'm going to start it again, because it does really promote that. And I was expecting it to be smaller by the way devs were talking about it, but like, I'm really happy with the size of this game. Like you said earlier, Kyle, like, you can put as much time into it as you want, and it's rare to have a game like that.
Like, I was around the like 15-20 mark. I think Jeff and me said we were like around 50,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I was probably around 20. Somebody wrote in there at 65. Like, it's wild. Neil Smith says, I found the guy you meet in the cave at the very start of the game again.
Oh, nice. Oh, cool.
Presumably because I offered medical help. He's alive and in the security station at Edgewater.
Okay.
That's cool.
I had no idea.
That's my favorite ending so far. You know?
I doomed Edgewater, but it's good to know that he's there.
Feel good story.
Edward Bailey says the variability based on your choices, both in the story and dialogue, is definitely the game's greatest strength. One big unfortunate thing I encountered was the bug causing Parvati's companion quest to fail. And I think the game believed her to be dead despite me playing with her in my party for the remainder of the game. During the final cutscene, it said she did not survive my adventure. I think it'd be great if a potential sequel incorporated save data from this one, but would suck since she was my favorite companion.
Yeah.
How likely is it that a sequel would incorporate save data, is what Edward wants to know.
Seems low.
Yeah.
Especially
I
with-
could see it, but I think it'd be less about like, well, Parvati's still around, and more about like what happened to that world.
I think it's going to be the equivalent of, Mass Effect 3 to Andromeda. We're going to be moving to a whole different area. And, like, remember in Andromeda, we all played it, right? Like, you could have a message from Liara. There was, like, a slight connection. I think it'll probably be, like, that tip of the cap, maybe with, like, an Ada cameo or something like that. Or you receive some signals that were sent from Halcyon or something like that.
I mean, you can become the leader of the colony, right, at the end, if you... or at least that's what I got, like, when they were like, hey, you should lead us. So I could see them being like, well, the unnamed leader of this other colony sent us a message.
Yeah,
something
I
like
think
that.
that's definitely the way it's
I
going.
mean, but the tease of Earth to me, like the fact that the whole end of the game was like, man, Earth, we don't know what's going on with Earth. Like, I feel like we're gonna go there. Like, it's gonna pick up there. Maybe you're somebody different. Like, but then there's also maybe they just pick a canon ending and make that.
I don't think they need to, right?
But like stuff like Parvati, like if they want to have Parvati hanging around, like maybe they're just like, well, the canon ending going.
I don't think they will.
Yeah,
I don't think
they
feel
will
like,
either,
I feel like
but-
all those characters are done because those end caps were so clear of like, well, this is basically what happened to this person
For the rest of their lives,
I
yeah.
guess some of them are more nebulous of like, where did they go? But I think there are probably options for every character that's pretty finite.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can kill every partner, right? Ultimately,
Yeah.
there's some way to kill every single one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting, that they end with Earth, because definitely when we're at the studio, they were talking a lot about like, we want to make Outer Worlds 2. I remember they said specifically we want to call it Outer Worlds 2 TWO, because then it would be TOWTWO as the abbreviation of it.
That's the main reason they want to make the sequel.
Yeah, I think so,
Yeah.
right? But they were talking, I think we talked about it in one of the deepest dives already, but they were talking about like how, it'd be fun to have a storyline, and we've already mapped one out where like a really rich guy owns an entire different solar system, like a Bill Gates like character, you know? And so it's interesting that it seemed like they knew where they wanted to go, and it's like maybe that's shifted to DLC if they do make DLC. What if they made DLC? Do you think that they would make it Microsoft exclusive and try and plant those seeds, or they still create goodwill in the other systems to try and lure people to the next gen Xbox?
No, I would probably see them say like, this is for all platforms or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't
Because
think
I don't see Microsoft really.
They don't
caring.
seem to care a lot.
Yeah.
Right. I
Like
think
maybe-
they do.
I think
Like last gen,
when
it
it
would've
comes to
been
the
different,
sequel,
but-
I think they'll care a lot about that stuff. But
I think it's kind of like the Minecraft situation of like, it's out there, all these different places. Basically, if we give everyone more DLC of this game that they like, it's just incentivizing us to buy the second game, which we're going to keep for ourselves.
Did you see the XO19 stream? Phil Spencer did a little quick interview at the end, and he was talking about Obsidian's Grounded, their new game, and he's like, I'm still playing Outer Worlds. I'm not that far, but I'm having a great time. I'm not that far. I'm level 20. It's like, what? Like, I think I finished this game like level 24 or something, maybe. So it's like, that's a weird thing to
Yeah,
say.
you max out at level 30,
Is
and
that
you
right?
stop
yeah.
getting XP at
which
that point.
I got to 30 just as I killed Chairman Rockwell, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that, I definitely 20 is pretty far, I think.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, he's trying to underplay it. I don't know
Someone
where he's
just
coming from.
told him, say level 20.
I believe him. I believe he's a real ass gamer guy.
Yeah, but I bet he was siding with the board the whole time.
Yeah, he is the board.
Phil Spencer got mad at me once for not having played the Flame and the Flood in an interview.
What?
He was like talking about new games, and he's like, "Yeah, like, I've been playing Flame and the Flood," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I haven't got a chance to play that one." And he's like, "What?"
You idiot!
He's like, I'm an executive at Microsoft, and I have time to play the Flame
Is
and
that
the
right?
Flood.
Oh, that's funny.
So I
What do you
walked
got?
out.
Some sort of dumb daughter or something?
You got a kid?
Get him, boys. Chris Bartlett, again writing in, says, off the game itself. Well, hang on. I guess I'll save this one.
right.
Any other thoughts? Favorite quest, least favorite quest, Chris
Oh,
Bartlett
geez.
also
Pull out
threw
the-
out there.
to the notes, everybody.
To
go
the-
to the
yeah,
notes.
To
One-
the
one- do
note
you have a
thing
song for
at
that?
the end was I found it kind of curious that they were like since I resolved like the MSI Iconoclast storyline,
Yeah.
they were like, oh yeah, the board kind of fell by the wayside because you destroyed them, but then MSI rose up as the big corporation around it, and that was like a weird, like, was that meant to be kind of like a sly, like, well, there's always going to be a corporation, or were they like, no, now there's a good corporation leading things, and that's good. It felt like a weird, like, well, okay, well, what I thought I had completed the quest the right way, but the ending made it seem like, well, now there's a new corporation controlling everything, and so I was always like, kind of like, I don't know. I feel a little bit.
You got rid of Google, but then Bing showed up.
Yeah, exactly. Bing. Yeah, that big corporation.
gonna happen.
That's what they call him. They call him Bing.
Kyle, I know you're obsessed with Earth like some weirdo. Did you also
live here.
enjoy it when they had the transcript on the hope of like them leaving? Them launching
Oh, I
off,
think I saw that, no.
it was like the entire premise was all of them were just like, "Good riddance, see ya, Earth, let's go," that like type of vibe, which is really fun.
Yeah, and one person's like, I don't know, should we say something or
Yeah.
And everyone else is like, no, let's get out of here.
Go, punch it.
I like that, Earth is sort of treated as like, being cut off from them was scary, obviously. Like, everyone's scared of the fact that they haven't heard from Earth. But outside of that, everyone was like, I don't know, why do you care about Earth? Let's like leave it behind.
Yeah, for
Which
sure.
is looking like our future these days. So
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
You
please
really think
recycle.
about it.
That'll do it.
I love
everything.
I love the idea that, and I'm sure they would do several like, "Are you sure?" But I love that in so many conversation options, there's just the option on there of like, hey, Felix, I want you to get the hell out of here. Like, Vicar, how about you get the hell off the ship? Was I rude to them, or even if you were nice to them, is that always just one
always
dialogue
there,
option?
and it always freaks me out. And I'm sure they would have the yes, but there are so many times when I'd be like, trying to scroll down to the I want to leave this conversation. It's like, oh no, I don't want to kick Parvati out.
Yeah, for sure. It's an awesome idea in the game. Like, but it's like, I guess I want to see how they react. But it's really tempted to be like right in that final meeting. It would have been really funny to be like, Vicar, get the hell out of here. Just like choose somebody randomly. Like you can't see the ending.
You're fired.
Yeah, exactly.
One quick takeaway, I guess, like a final thought is Vicar really surprised me. Like he ended up being actually like one of my favorite companions.
Oh, really?
Which is just like, I just thought it was interesting for the sake of the game that when he joined the party, I was like, okay, well, I mean, you're around, you're here for a while. Like, I think I'm going to hang out with Parvati more. But like having him with me, like all his one-liners really cracked me up. And I just liked his general sort of like personality, and I was surprised that he became one of my favorites.
Yeah, that is unexpected.
And I liked how his worldview changed too.
Yeah.
Where at the end he finally gets to the point where he's like, no, everything was alive. Like it is chaos, and just kind of doubles back on that. And there were a couple funny conversations between him and Ellie on the ship where, like throughout the entire experience, like Ellie is always chiding him and like, so this plan, you believe in this plan, huh? And he's like, yeah. She's like, so is it my plan to annoy you right now? Is that part of the plan? But after you do his thing, she comes up and tries to do the same shtick, and he's like, yeah, I did believe that at one point, but now I'm completely past that.
That's funny.
And she gets all annoyed, and he's like, now it seems like you're the one who's annoyed by this. And she like just like, well, whatever. Ruin that for her.
Yeah, overall, like so many people wrote in that they're kind of were disappointed by the ending, that it felt like it petered out or it was so abrupt. And maybe it's just because like I spent the most time in this ending chunk and like really started experimenting and poking at the sides. But like I loved my last session playing this game. Like this is the one I was most excited about. Maybe it's just because it was the most, right? But I really respected just the flexibility of the game. And I think overall, it's a game that I appreciate a lot more than I personally love. I don't know if you all have that same feeling. It's like, well, I love that this exists, but I'm not over the moon about it. But still, like I'm thinking, and we'll get into this in future content at MinnMax, but it's like I really don't like 2019, and like the game's released, I'm like, this might be my favorite game I've played this year so far. Yeah,
it's up there for me.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be on my top 10.
Oh wow.
But we'll see. But I think we talked about early on. It's just not my genre generally. I like more directed stories in general. I don't get a lot of emotional connection out of getting to choose. Because a lot of the times I'm just thinking about, I wonder what the other option was.
Yeah,
or
totally.
like I don't really want that much agency over the story in terms of like what I like from story.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it overall for sure.
We also know, Kyle, that you studied business for 3 years because some random person told you you'd be a good business person.
That's true. My algebra.
So he doesn't like choices.
That's true.
I don't like choices.
So Chris Bartlett says, off the game itself, I would love if you guys keep doing deepest dives regularly. Game clubs at Game Informer. What's that? Somebody. Must be a typo.
The Game Club or the Game Informer?
I don't know. Whatever. Jokes are hard. We're awesome, but they were spread so far apart. I agree. It'd be great to have the community and you guys always planning and discussing something together. Yeah, I don't know about like constant deepest dive, but I definitely want to do more in the future than we did at Game Informer for sure. And like I would love to do one over Christmas break era. And if you're a $10 supporter on Patreon, patreon.com/MinnMax.
2 ends.
2 ends.
Yeah.
Thank you. You hate it already. We're like a month into this thing. Oh, Christ. But I think it'd be fun to have the community vote on the deepest dive. And I promise we won't put Jumanji, the video game, in that poll.
So set stipulations here. Like, is it like any game we could do?
No,
Super Mario
it'll be
Brothers
the poll, right? And so we
Okay.
post that on Patreon for $10 supporters of like a couple options we're thinking of. It could even be 2, because I want to make sure that we're not tortured by this choice. Like it needs to come from a passionate place from us.
Yeah,
but I
everybody
like
has
figuring
to be
out.
enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, for sure. But I have one in my mind that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and I can't wait. And Kyle, I know you brought up the idea of doing Metal Gear Solid 2, and it's like, I would.
Oh, okay.
Really? Maybe somebody in the
have to
comments
figure out how
brought
to
it up.
Was this
play
like
it.
in the past? Mostly my reaction was like, I don't remember bringing that up. I remember
really?
talking about. The question was, which game club do you wish like you could have done? And I was like, it would have been fun to do Metal Gear Solid 2 when it came out.
Right, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
but that being said, I love Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
And I'll play the Vita version.
Oh, fun. I would love to do it. That's not in the running as far as we know, but maybe
you're
it'll be in the
discussing
poll.
games that you would like. Gotcha.
I would love to.
They
And-
can be older games. They don't have to be brand new games.
And honestly, this is an accident. But recently in the Slack, I floated an idea, not to spoil anything, but I just realized, like, wait, it's not called the Game Club anymore. Like, it's called the Deepest Dive. Like, we could do things outside of video games, like loving dogs. No,
Grilled cheese sandwiches.
grilled. No, but we could do
we did that on the Game
other
Informer show.
things. And
That's
I'm
the other show.
super-
That's my show. Don't.
I'm super
Yeah, right.
excited about that idea. I don't know if the community would be excited about it, but just like, oh, wait a minute. Deepest dive on some other thing.
Ulysses.
Honestly, just making a book club, backdoor book club. I think it's
Deepest
a really fun
dive, but
idea.
it's a book club.
Yeah.
If only there was a better name for this.
Yeah, but again, maybe that's something we can put in the poll. It's like you tell us, right? I think it'd be super fun
weird.
to have an outlier in there, and hopefully you'll understand what we're talking about in the future. Thanks so much for watching this. Again, we're a Patreon. If you support us at the $5 level, you get access to the audio versions of this, which I understand is more convenient to everybody. But I hope the system works out and everybody feels like they're getting something out of it. Thanks again to everybody that wrote in.
Yeah.
You did it. We did it.
Bunch of heroes in there. If you back the Patreon at any level, you get access to the Discord. In the Discord, there are channels. There were several. There was one all about the Game Club. I'm sorry, the Deepest Dive. But then there's also one that was just all about like spoilers for Outer Worlds. So if you're looking for a place to talk about the games you're playing, Outer Worlds and beyond, I think the
Pretty
MinnMax
much every major game that comes out, we create a channel. Well, we don't. The awesome mods create a channel.
Yeah.
That, and like specific spoiler channels too and stuff. So
Right.
if you want to talk about those games.
Yeah, it's
They're there.
an awesome place to talk about games overall. That's it, everybody. We have a new episode of the MinnMax Show coming up tomorrow, if you're watching this right when it came out on Wednesday, and then we'll have more streams and stuff in the future. We'll have our first community meetup. Hopefully, I'll be sharing new details on that in the very near future, because that'll be very fun here in Minnesota. But hey, thanks so much for watching or listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.